Hey guys, it's the War Hipster here, coming at you with another painting tutorial, and today we are painting the Catachan Colonel. And this is really exciting because this guy is so limited, but there's lots of techniques that we're going to be using this that you can use for any Imperial Guard or indeed any Catachan officer that you may have. So what we're going to do, without further ado, we're going to start painting him, and the colour that we're going to be using first is Ork Flesh, and we're going to be using this on all of his trousers. All of his trousers, all the fatigues. So we're just going to be using this on his trousers, is what I should say, because he doesn't have multiple pairs of trousers. That would be weird. Why would they have multiple pairs of trousers? Who knows? Anyway, we just want to get a nice good coverage of Ork Flesh all over his trousers. Like this. And next up, once that Ork Flesh is dry, what we want to do is we want to take a small amount of Dark Angel's Green. We now want to coat this all over the top of that Ork Flesh that we've just done. Like this. You don't want to use loads because you don't want it to be a really, really, really dark green. We don't want to drown these trousers in this colour. And next up, once that's dry, we're going to use some thinned down Loren Forest. And we want to use this to basically act as a nice thick layer, avoiding the darkest recesses where that Ork Flesh and Dark Angel's Green has settled. Like this. So you just want to get this all over. And with that Loren Forest applied, what we now want to do is we want to take some Straken Green. And we want to use this to just highlight all of the raised areas on his trousers, like this. And once that Straken Green is dry, we're going to use a small amount of Nurgling Green to just apply a little bit of a spot highlight in the sharpest points of these trousers. So you just want to catch areas like this. We don't want to do the whole highlight, we just want to, like I said, we're just grabbing little spots. And with that done, the trousers are now finished. Well, for now. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to paint the rest of his armour. And the colour that we're going to be using for this first is Creed Camo. And what we want to do is we basically just want to apply a nice smooth coat of this Creed Camo all over all of his armour, including his power fist and his hat. And with that Creed Camo applied, what we now want to do is we want to grab some Militarum Green and we want to go all over those armour panels once more. Like this. As well as over his hat. We want to do that too. And next up, we're going to create a roughly 5 parts contrast medium to 1 part Dark Angel's Green mix. And we're going to use this along most of the armour, but not all of it. So what we want to do is we want to get this mix going over these lower panels, but we just want to leave these top bits here so we get a bit of variation in the tones that we get out of this armor, like this. So don't use loads of this Dark Angels Green mix at once. Just use a little bit of it at a time, just to keep it under control. And with that Dark Angels Green glaze applied, what I realized as I was doing it was I actually hadn't done the knee pads. So the knee pads are exactly the same process as we've just done for the rest of the armor. So nothing particularly special. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take some Straken Green. I'm going to use this to highlight all of that armor that we've just done. And with that Straken Green highlight applied, what we want to do is we want to take a small amount of Nurgling Green. We want to use this just to pick out areas like these rivets and the corners of the armor. Areas like there on the knee pad, and these kind of bottom edges here of the power fist, or the pistons of the power fist, I should say. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to work on all of the black details. And so the color we're going to be using for this is Black Templar. What we want to do is we want to use this paint to now pick out all of the areas such as the boots and the little pouches on his chest and the little straps around his wrist and the ones holding in place that power fist, as well as his belt. Just want to get a good coat of this Black Templar all over these details, like I'm doing here on the belt, on the boot. And with that done, what we want to do is we want to take some Skeleton Horde, and we're going to use this to paint in the cloth tabard thing that he's got. It's kind of a cloak, kind of a tabard. It kind of reminds me of like a really long NFL towel that they wear. Because it's down here on the back. So it's kind of like a banner, kind of like a tabard, kind of like a cloak, and kind of like none of them. And next up, with that Skeleton Horde applied, what we're going to do is we're going to grab some Wyldwood and we're going to use this on all of his skin. So what we want to do, we'll start on his arm. We just want to use this Wyldwood all over the flesh. We want to make sure that we get in under the armpit as well. Like this. Let me give my brush a quick wash because we had a runaway bristle. I'm just going to keep going. Getting this Wyldwood all over. And with that done, we're now going to use a small amount with a smaller brush than that one. This one. This is a small airbrush. We're going to use a small amount of Cygor Brown, and we're going to use this on the strap that holds in place the plasma pistol. As well as the strap that holds the Catachan dagger. I can't remember what it's called. It's called a fang or something. And with that done, we now want to take a small amount of Black Templar, and we want to use this to colour in his moustache and his hair. And with that done, we're now going to use some thinned down Iron Warriors. And this is going to be to coat in all of the bits that we now want to be silver. So areas like his grenades, the big knife on his back, and the mechanical parts of the plasma pistol, and any other kind of exposed metalwork that you want to be silver. So I'm going to do areas like his belt buckle as well, and the pole on his back up here, as well as a couple of other bits and pieces. But just look at the box art, or do whatever you like, which I know isn't very helpful, but you know, it is all about choice at the end of the day. And with that done, just before we do the gold, what we're going to do is going to grab some Blood Angels Red. And we're going to use this to paint in the wrap of the dagger, knife, sword. So we want to get the soft grip down here with the Blood Angels Red. And we also want to use this Blood Angels Red to paint in the strap on the binoculars. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to use some Retributor Armour. This is going to be to colour in all of the gold details. So we've got areas like this little Aquila here on his chest, the casing of the bullet just here, a little skull on his hat, the little Aquila on his belt. Don't want to forget that. And we've got a little skull here on his backpack. As well as, I should point out, you can just see this little plasma coil in here. And the reason we're painting it gold is because the plasma pistol is off. And if you look at the box art, you can see that it's this kind of dark gold color. And we don't want him to have a plasma pistol attached to his hip that's on. That would be foolish. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to use a small amount, some thinned down Corax White. We want to use this to colour in two areas. One, the little emblem on his shoulder pad, which is currently Wraithbone, or if we've made mistakes like I have, there's little bits of green on some of the laurels. We just want to cover those over and get this whole area nice and white. Like this. And we also want to use this Corax White to colour in the skull up the top here. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to use some Skeleton Horde. This is going to be for that skull up here. Just taking care around all that silver. Like that. Make sure to work it into the nose and eye socket. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to take some Apothecary White. And we want to use this on that emblem on his shoulder. Like this. And with that, what we now want to do is we want to use some Basilicanum Grey. And this is to shade all of the metallics. So we want to use this on all of the silver, and we want to use this on all of the gold as well. And we just want to take care as we do this because we don't want to get this everywhere. Just want to make sure that we get this on just the metallics where we can. Like I'm doing here. And you also don't want to use loads as you do this, because if you use lots at a time, you'll end up just kind of completely destroying either the silver or the gold that you end up shading with it. You just want to take your time and just use little amounts. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to take some Iyanden Yellow, and we want to use this on both the cables on his back. So you want to use the Iyanden Yellow on this cable here, as well as on the one up here. And with that Iyanden Yellow applied, what we now want to do is we want to take a bit of Cygor Brown, and we want to use that across this red strap that we've painted in previously. You don't want to use loads of Cygor Brown at once. Just want to use a small amount, because what we want is to basically make this look like just kind of like a really dark red leather. As you see, I'm using a very small amount just to get this Cygor Brown all over, and just to really darken down that red strap. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to apply some highlights to the miniature. Now the colour we're going to start with is Steel Legion Drab, and this is going to be for all of his flesh. Now this is a first highlight, and so it'll be a little bit subtle. But we basically just want to kind of do this as like a wide highlight over all of his kind of the hard edges on all of his skin. So as you can see, I'm starting with the face here, like this. But on the muscles, we want to kind of pick out any of the kind of scars and veins, as well as run a small amount of this Steel Legion Drab around the outside of each of those muscles. And with that Steel Legion Drab applied, what we now want to do is we want to take a really small amount of Karak Stone, and we just want to apply this to the sharpest parts of all of this skin. So areas like the tip of his nose, the outside of this scar here, and across here like this, and across this scar as well. We also want to pick out like the tops of his ears, like that, his brow, really just any of the kind of sharpest points around the model, like this. And with that Karak Stone applied, what we now want to do is we want to take a small amount of Wraithbone, and we want to use this to colour in the whites of his eyes. Like that. And with the whites of his eyes coloured in, we now want to use a teeny tiny amount of Black Templar. Not very much at all. I've actually got too much on my brush there. Just want to use a small amount to apply a little dot of the Black Templar in the middle of each. And with his eyes done, what we now want to do is we're going to use a bit of Administratum Grey. And we want to use this just to apply a few dots of grey into his moustache, like that, as well as a few in his hair, like that. And we also want to use this Administratum Grey to just highlight the top edges of all of those black details. And with that done, what we now want to do is highlight all the silver details. And the colour that we're going to be using for this is Iron Hand Steel. So you just want to apply an edge highlight to all of the silver details that we've got on him. Just like this. And next up, we want to use some Liberator Gold. And this is to highlight all of the gold. And with that done, we want to take a small amount of Stormhost Silver and apply this over the top of any of the lenses across the model. So we've got one up there on the skull. I'm going to apply it across binoculars lenses, as well as the ones inside here. With that Stormhost Silver applied, what we want to do is we want to take some Gryph Hound Orange. We want to use this on the lens of that servo skull. Like that. As you can see, that Stormhost Silver makes it look really nice and shiny. And similarly to the servo skull, what we want to do is we want to take some Talassar Blue. We want to use this on the lenses on the binoculars. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to take some Black Templar. I'm going to use this for two things. One, I'm going to use it for the little claw hanging off the back pipe just down here, like that. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to take a small amount of Black Templar. I'm going to paint some hazard strips across these yellow cables. So what we want to do is we just want to take the Black Templar and draw, firstly, some equidistant lines going all the way around each of these cables. Like that. And then what we do is we kind of strengthen them up with a little bit more Black Templar, and we also make sure that we kind of follow them all the way around. So I'm just going to take a little Black Templar off. I'm just going to start following what I've already done. All the way around to the other side. And with those hazard stripes applied to that cable, what we're now going to do is going to use some Tuskgor Fur. And this is to highlight the red leather strap on the binoculars. And with that, well, the Colonel is pretty much finished and he looks amazing. However, what we're going to do just before we move on to doing the base is we're actually going to do a little bit of a final flourish, and we're going to add some camo to his trousers. And the first colour we're going to use for this is Karak Stone. And now all we want to do is we want to just draw some little lines going in waves. Like this. Across his trousers with the Karak Stone. You just want to kind of randomly place them. So do a couple on his left leg, do a couple on his right leg, and do one or two on the back as well. And with that Karak Stone applied, what we now want to do is we're going to do the similar thing again. Only this time, we're going to use some Corvus Black. You just want to use it in the places where we haven't used the Karak Stone. Like this. And with that camouflage pattern added to his trousers, our Catachan Colonel is now finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on his base next. I'm going to do a couple of interesting cool things. So what we're going to do first is we're going to use some Flesh Tearers Red. I'm going to use this on all of the leaves on this tree back here. Like this. We just want to be a little bit careful when it comes around to this little bit of vine on this leaf here. You don't really want to get any Flesh Tearers Red on that, but if you do, just neaten it back up with some Wraithbone. I want to do both sides. And next up, once that Flesh Tearers Red is dry, we're going to take some Cygor Brown. I'm going to paint this all over the tree itself. And with that Cygor Brown applied, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Gore Grunta Fur, and we're going to use this over the top of that Flesh Tearer's Red that we've already applied. So you want to just really darken down these leaves, but what we want to do is we want to just leave the edges shining through as the red, like that. So once again, on the other side, just applying this Gore Grunta Fur to the flat of the leaf. And with that done, what we want to do now is we want to create a roughly 1-to-1 mix of Ork Flesh and Terradon Turquoise. And we want to use this on all of the leaves and the vines on the model. So areas like here. And as you can see, this gives this really cool, ethereal looking, almost like a, kind of like a Sybarite green. If you wanted to, I don't actually know what the actual colour name of it would be. It's just that's just a Citadel paint, Sybarite green. For goodness sake, Josh. Anyway, we're using this on all these leaves, and we're going to use this on that vine on the back here. We're not going to use it here on that little leaf there. We're just using it on these ones. We want that little vine there to be a slightly different colour. And next up, we're going to use some Plaguebearer Flesh. And this is going to be for that little bit of vine or splat or whatever you want to call it on this leaf here. Like that. And next up, we're going to use a little bit of Creed Camo. And this is going to be for that little splat or little vine up here. Like that. And with that done, we're going to use some Militarum Green. And this is going to be for that crate that he is standing on. Like this. And next up, we're going to use some Volupus Pink. And this is going to be for two places. One, for this little interesting bit of flora or fungi we've got down here. Lord knows what that is. Like that. Just making sure to finish off the section before moving on, so I don't end up with a nice dark Volupus Pink line halfway through. That. Like that. And what we're also going to use this Volupus Pink for is we want to use it effectively all over this flower bed. Don't worry about the teeth, because we can always restore those afterwards. We just want to make sure that we get this flower part nice and pink. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to take a small amount of Creed Camo and just over the top of the box, we want to add lots and lots of little lines going up and down around the box. So just, this doesn't have to be a fully smooth coat, because what we want is it want to kind of just appear like a wooden crate. And rather than doing this by doing lots of highlights, we will do some highlights, but we want to kind of apply that shade to it first. So what we want to do, like around here, so we just want to Do lots. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to do the same process again across the box, only this time in like a highlight, and we're going to be using some Nurgling Green. So you just want to, as I say, just do lots and lots of little lines. Going up and down. And with that done, we now want to take some Wraithbone and we want to use it on the teeth of this plant down here like that. And with that done, what we now want to do is we want to fill in the rest of that negative space around the bottom of the base. And so the colour I'm going to be using is some Stirland Battlemire. I'm going to be adding this using my texture spreader. Just trying to get a small amount rather than loads, because I want to have a bit of control as I do this. And I just want to get this in all over that space where there isn't any of these details. And with that Stirland Battlemire applied, what we now want to do is we want to do a dry brush of Tyrant Skull, and we want to do this all over the base. So you just want to catch the edges of those leaves down there, as well as that crate. I want to get this over all of that Stirland Battlemire that we've applied. We also want to do a very light dry brush over the tree as well. I've added some tufts to his base, and so all that remains to do is to colour in the rim using some thinned down Steel Legion drab. Like this. And there we have it, one finished Catachan Colonel, ready to purge the death worlds of the Imperium of Xenos, heretics, and anything else you wouldn't like to find on the sole of your boot. I really enjoy this one. I really like painting Astra Militarum, or Imperial Guard, for those of you out there who, you know, prefer the old ways of saying things. Yeah, I hope you find this one useful. You can definitely use this for any Cadians or anything that you might be painting, particularly for all of that carapace. Is it carapace? I don't know. All of that flak armor. That's the one I'm looking for. I always forget these things. If you enjoyed this one and you'd like to support me further, like these legends on the screen, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. And if you'd like to stay up to date, make sure to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.